All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on large-scale RFQs.
Okay.
And,
Sounds good.
we know that this is a really important topic to our listeners.
For sure.
So, for anyone who's maybe not as familiar with RFQs, an RFQ is a request for quote.
Right.
And it's basically just a way that businesses can try to find the best deals on different services and goods they need.
Yeah, it's about sourcing.
Exactly.
It's about sourcing and getting the best value.
And it's a really great way to kind of streamline the process, especially when you're dealing with like really high volume.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like those lower value items.
Yeah, where the specs are already kind of set.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, obviously we're talking about large scale RFQs here.
Right. Not just your average RFQ.
Not your average RFQ. Yeah, we're thinking big. We're talking like, up to 1,000 line items.
Wow.
100 suppliers.
Yeah.
And 30 terms per item.
It's massive.
It gets really complicated.
Yeah, it's a whole other world.
And that's why we have our expert here.
Happy to be here.
To help us navigate.
Yeah,
this whole world of large-scale RFQs.
Especially in the age of online platforms.
Yeah.
It's a game changer.
Which is really amazing.
For sure.
So, it's really interesting to see how RFQs have kind of evolved over time.
It is. Yeah, it's been a fascinating evolution.
Yeah.
It used to be all about these really old school paper-heavy processes.
Tons of paperwork.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now you have these cloud-based platforms that can handle, a mind-blowing amount of information.
Yeah. You think about like industries like airlines and manufacturing.
Right.
Like they've always used RFQs.
Always, yeah, because of the need for like standardized parts in large volumes.
Exactly.
But it's going mainstream now. It's not just those industries.
I mean, think about those massive spreadsheets with color-coded tabs.
Oh, yeah.
And all the formulas.
Endless formulas.
Can you imagine trying to manage a global supply chain?
Yeah.
Using that?
It's a nightmare.
It would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So RFQs are kind of offering a solution.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah, it's a much-needed solution.
To that chaos.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just about, those big companies anymore.
Right.
Like our source talks about an online organic food shop.
Okay, interesting.
That deals with like 5,000 items and 50 different suppliers.
Wow.
So instead of having to email and call everyone to try to figure out the latest prices, they can use an RFQ.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it just streamlines everything.
And it's efficient.
Much more efficient.
So we're talking about like a fundamental shift here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're moving from like a reactive, error-prone process to like a proactive, data-driven decision-making process.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and using data to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's really important.
So speaking of, doing things well.
Yes.
We have some really great source material.
We do.
For this deep dive today.
Absolutely.
That kind of digs into best practices for both.
Right.
The people sending out the RFQs.
The requesters.
The requesters.
And the bidders.
And the bidders, yeah.
The suppliers.
Yeah.
It's about getting the best outcome for everyone.
Exactly. And I think there's sometimes this misconception
that
RFQs are just for these giant corporations.
Right.
And that's clearly not true.
Not at all. No matter what size your company is.
Right.
Whether you're a massive airline or a small online business.
Yeah.
Using best practices can make a world of difference.
They really can. And our source breaks down some really excellent advice for both sides of the equation. So maybe we can start with the requester side.
Sure, yeah.
What are some of the biggest takeaways there?
Well, I think one of the big ones is just allowing enough time for bidders to actually put together their bids.
That makes sense.
Generate them, review them.
Right.
Maybe tweak them a little bit and get them submitted.
You don't want to rush the process.
No, you don't want to rush it.
Yeah.
Because then you end up with mistakes and incomplete bids.
Right. Which is not good for anyone.
Not good for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the bidders?
Yeah.
What kind of advice does our source have for them?
Well, I think the big one is avoid those last-minute submissions at all costs.
Yeah.
Because if your bid isn't in by the deadline, it might be considered ineligible.
Oh, wow.
Even if it was just like a technical glitch or something.
Oh, that's tough.
So it's better to plan ahead and get those bids in early.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And then, another thing that our source mentions is event reports.
Yes.
And how they're really crucial for analyzing what happened.
Right after the RFQ closed.
After the RFQs closed, exactly.
You got it.
So, Data is king.
Data's king for sure.
Yeah.
And, speaking of data,
Yeah.
another best practice, our source highlights,
Okay.
is using prerequisite questions.
Okay, what are those?
So these are questions that help make sure that everyone involved
Okay.
understands exactly how the RFQ event will work.
Interesting.
So even a simple yes or no question, confirming understanding,
Yeah,
can prevent a lot of confusion down the line.
that's true.
It just makes the process smoother.
So instead of having to figure things out mid-process, you're setting those clear expectations from the start.
From the very beginning.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just clarity.
Okay.
This kind of transparency also demonstrates a commitment to fairness,
Right.
which is really important for building trust
That's a good point.
between requesters and bidders.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's all about trust.
Okay, so our source also talks about using RFIs
Yes.
along with large-scale RFQs.
Right.
Can you unpack that for us a little bit?
Sure. So an RFI is a request for information,
Okay.
and it's basically a way to gather more detailed information from suppliers before you even launch the big RFQ.
Gotcha.
So it's all about making sure everyone's on the same page
Yeah.
and that the RFQ itself is as clear and concise as possible.
So you're saying the RFI kind of sets the stage,
Exactly. It sets the stage.
and then the RFQ is like the main event.
The main event, yeah, think of it as a two-step process.
Okay.
First, you gather information with the RFI.
Mm-hmm.
Then you kind of refine and formalize the sourcing process with the RFQ.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just makes everything run smoother.
Okay, I'm following you.
Good.
So we've covered a lot already.
We have.
We talked about how RFQs have evolved
Mm-hmm.
to this idea of using online platforms to kind of
Right.
save time and boost efficiency.
For sure.
And it's clear that these processes can benefit businesses of all sizes.
Absolutely.
Um,
And don't forget those best practices.
oh, yeah,
Those are super important
they are.
for both sides
Yeah.
to really get the most out of large-scale RFQs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's one other big piece of this puzzle that we need to explore,
Okay.
and that's automation.
Yes.
The power of automation in these modern RFQ platforms.
That's where things get really exciting.
It really is.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be diving into next.
Can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
Let's do it. So, welcome back.
Yeah.
So before the break, we were talking about automation
Right.
and how it's revolutionizing these modern RFQ platforms.
It really is.
It's like a total game changer.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with these massive events,
Right.
with hundreds of line items and suppliers.
Yeah. Could you paint a picture for our listeners?
Sure.
What does this automation actually look like in practice?
Yeah. So imagine you're a procurement specialist
Yeah.
and you're sending out an RFQ for aircraft parts.
Okay.
You've got 50 suppliers all bidding on hundreds of different components,
Oh, wow.
and each part has its own specs,
Uh-huh.
lead times, and prices.
Right.
In the past, this would have been a complete nightmare.
Yeah, I can
You'd be
tell you.
stuck manually entering data,
Yeah.
tracking responses,
Right.
crunching numbers.
Ah.
But with these online platforms, a lot of that heavy lifting is taken care of automatically.
That's got to be a relief for anyone who's used to those clunky spreadsheets.
Right. It's a huge time saver.
Yeah, so how does it actually work?
Wow.
Does the platform just magically gather all the bids
Pretty much.
and compare them side by side?
It uses these sophisticated algorithms
Could-
to analyze bids in real time.
Wow.
So it can compare prices,
Wow.
factor in things like shipping costs and lead times,
Oh, wow.
and even flag any potential discrepancies or outliers.
So you're not just saving time,
Right.
you're also minimizing the risk of human error,
Exactly.
which is huge.
Huge. Yeah.
And because everything's centralized on this single platform,
Right.
it's got to be way easier to track the progress of the RFQ,
Way easier. Yeah.
communicate with suppliers,
Mm.
and make sure everyone's literally on the same page.
Everyone's on the same page. Yeah. It's all about transparency.
And that transparency's got to be super valuable.
It is. Yeah. Especially when you're dealing with these complex, high stakes purchases.
Right.
You need to know what's going on.
Yeah. And it's not just valuable for the companies sending out the RFQs.
Right.
It's also valuable for the suppliers who are bidding on them.
Absolutely. It's a win-win.
So they get clear instructions, real-time feedback,
Yep.
and a fair shot at winning the bid.
Exactly. It levels the playing field.
And this kind of goes back to what our source was talking
Okay.
about how these online platforms are changing the whole dynamic
Right.
of the RFQ process.
It's not just about price anymore.
Yeah, it's becoming more collaborative
Much more,
and efficient for everyone.
for sure.
And ultimately, that benefits the end consumer.
Right, because they get better products and services.
Exactly.
It's a win-win-win.
So for someone who might be new to this whole RFQ world,
Yeah.
what are some of the key features they should look for
A great question.
in an online platform?
So first and foremost,
Okay.
ease of use.
Makes sense.
The platform should be intuitive and user-friendly.
Yeah. Nobody wants to waste time
Right.
trying to figure out how to use the software.
Exactly. It should be easy to navigate and understand.
Yeah, even for people who aren't like super tech savvy.
For sure.
Okay, so ease of use is number one.
Uh-huh.
What else?
What else?
Robust reporting and analytics.
Okay.
You need to be able to easily track the progress of your RFQ,
Right.
see how suppliers are bidding,
Uh-huh.
and identify any potential red flags.
So it's not just about sending out the RFQ
Right.
and then waiting for the bids to roll in.
You need to be able to analyze that data
You need the tools to analyze the data.
and make informed decisions.
Okay. That makes sense.
And speaking of data,
Yeah.
security is paramount.
Oh, of course.
You're dealing with very sensitive information.
Right. Like pricing specifications, supplier details.
All of that. You don't want that falling into the wrong hands.
Absolutely not. So the platform needs to have top-notch security measures
To protect that data.
to protect that data.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what else should we be looking for?
Scalability and flexibility.
What?
It should be able to handle RFQs of all sizes and complexities,
Yeah.
from a few line items to those massive ones with hundreds of suppliers and thousands of bids.
So it's like finding the Goldilocks platform.
I love that analogy.
Not too small, not too big, but just right.
Just right for your needs.
For your needs, exactly.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that not all platforms are created equal.
Right.
It's worth doing your research.
Yeah.
Comparing features, maybe even trying out a few demos
Before you commit.
before you commit. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the how,
Mm-hmm.
like the tools, the technology, the best practices.
Right.
But let's take a step back and think about the why.
Okay.
Like, why are RFQs becoming so crucial in today's business world?
That's a great question.
It's not just about finding the best price anymore, is it?
No, it's much bigger than that.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Supply chains are becoming increasingly global
Right.
and complex.
Yeah.
Companies are sourcing materials and services from all over the world,
Uh-huh.
often dealing with multiple suppliers,
Right.
varying regulations,
Right.
and constantly fluctuating market conditions.
It sounds like a lot to manage.
It is a lot to manage.
Yeah.
You need the right tools and processes.
To avoid complete chaos.
Exactly. And that's where RFQs, especially those powered by these online platforms, really shine.
Okay.
They bring order to this complexity,
Mhm.
enabling businesses to navigate these intricate supply chains with more efficiency and transparency.
So it's not just about streamlining the procurement process.
Right.
It's about gaining a competitive edge
Absolutely.
in this global marketplace.
In today's fast-paced business environment,
Right.
agility and responsiveness are key. Companies that can quickly source the materials and services they need
Yeah.
at the best possible price and quality,
Right.
they have a significant advantage.
They do.
And RFQs, particularly those leveraging the power of automation and data analytics,
Right.
are crucial in achieving that agility.
So it's like having a finger on the pulse of
Yes.
the global supply chain,
You got it.
knowing exactly what's available at what price and from whom.
That's a great way to put it.
And this data-driven approach to procurement is becoming increasingly essential.
Absolutely. As companies face growing pressure to optimize their operations, reduce costs, and mitigate risks.
So it's not just about saving time and money.
No.
It's about making smarter decisions,
Right.
managing risks,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately driving business growth.
You got it.
Okay.
And this brings us to a really crucial point.
Okay.
The real value of these modern RFQ platforms
Yeah.
lies not just in the technology itself,
Okay.
but in how it empowers businesses to leverage data,
Uh-huh.
make informed decisions. Right.
And foster collaboration throughout the supply chain.
So it's about using technology to enhance human capabilities,
Exactly.
not to replace
I'll
them.
give it this way.
Okay.
These platforms free procurement professionals from those tedious manual tasks,
Right.
allowing them to focus on strategic thinking
Uh-huh.
and building stronger relationships with suppliers.
So it's a partnership between human intelligence
Yes.
and technological innovation.
Precisely. And this partnership is key to navigating the complexities of global supply chains and achieving sustainable business growth in today's dynamic and interconnected world.
This has been an incredible deep dive already.
It has.
We've learned so much from how RFQs have evolved to the power of automation,
Right.
the increasing importance of data-driven decision-making.
Absolutely.
And we've also seen how these online RFQ platforms are transforming procurement,
Yes.
making these processes more efficient,
Oh.
transparent, and collaborative.
Greater than ever before. And it's clear that RFQs are no longer just a tool for giant corporations.
Right.
They're becoming essential for businesses of all sizes
Absolutely.
who want to thrive in this global marketplace.
For sure.
So as we wrap up part 2,
Okay.
I'm curious, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from this conversation so far?
I think it's important for everyone to embrace the evolution of RFQs. Don't be afraid to explore these new online platforms and all of the capabilities they offer. Challenge yourself to think beyond those traditional applications.
Okay.
Where else could this level of transparency and efficiency be a game changer?
Ooh, I like that.
What industries are ripe for disruption?
That's a great question.
And we'll continue that conversation when we come back.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're back
We are.
with the final part of our deep dive
Part 3.
into large-scale RFQs.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and before we went to break, you left us with a really interesting question.
I did.
About, what other industries could benefit from embracing these advancements in RFQ technology.
Right. Thinking outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place for us to kind of pick back up.
Sure.
So, we tend to think about RFQs in the context of, those more traditional industries.
Right. Manufacturing, procurement.
Right. But really, any industry that relies on complex sourcing processes could benefit
For sure.
from these more efficient and transparent methods.
It's about finding the right fit.
Yeah. So we're thinking beyond, just those like big ticket items, like aircraft parts or industrial equipment.
Thinking broader.
Yeah. What else is out there?
Well, for example, healthcare.
Okay.
Hospitals and healthcare systems, they constantly need to source all kinds of stuff.
Right. Like medical supplies, pharmaceuticals.
Exactly. Even specialized services.
Yeah.
They could use RFQs to streamline their procurement processes.
That makes sense.
Make sure they're getting the best prices while still maintaining those strict quality standards.
Right. Because you can't compromise on quality in healthcare,
Absolutely not.
especially with all the pressure on healthcare providers to control costs
Yeah, costs are a huge factor.
and improve efficiency.
Efficiency is key too.
And it's not just about cost savings either.
Right.
RFQs can also help healthcare organizations mitigate risk
How so?
by making sure they're sourcing their supplies from reputable and reliable vendors.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, that's critical when patient safety is on the line.
Exactly. So it's a win-win
For sure.
for the provider and the patients.
Absolutely. And we can apply that same logic to other sectors too.
Like what?
Education, for example.
Okay.
Schools and universities could use RFQs for all sorts of things.
What kind of things?
Textbooks, classroom supplies, technology, even construction services.
Wow. So really anything,
Pretty much, yeah.
any organization that needs to source a lot of different things from different vendors.
Exactly. It's about managing that complexity.
Okay. And I guess the beauty of these online platforms is that they're so flexible
Incredibly flexible.
and scalable.
They can adapt to the needs of any industry,
Right.
any organization, no matter how big or small.
And this kind of ties back to what we were talking about before
Okay.
about the need for agility in today's business world.
It's a fast-paced world.
It is, and companies need to be able to adapt quickly.
To all those changing market conditions and demands?
Right, and RFQs provide a framework for doing that.
They do. They offer a structured approach.
And as technology keeps evolving,
Oh, yeah, it's constantly evolving.
I mean, who knows what we'll be talking about in a few years.
Right. Think about AI and machine learning.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
The potential to further automate and optimize the sourcing process is huge.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. But, of course, with any new technology,
Yeah.
there are challenges.
What kind of challenges?
Well, for example, how do we make sure these platforms are accessible
Great.
to businesses of all sizes?
Yeah, not just those with tons of money to throw around.
Exactly. Affordability is key.
So software providers need to create solutions that are
Affordable.
accessible.
To even the smallest businesses.
Everyone should be able to benefit.
I agree. The benefits of efficient and transparent sourcing shouldn't be limited to just a select few.
And what about the human element?
That's a great point.
As we automate more and more tasks,
Yeah.
how do we make sure we don't lose sight of the importance of relationships?
Right. Relationships are still crucial.
especially with suppliers.
It's all about finding that balance
Doing automation.
and human expertise.
So these platforms should be designed to augment human capabilities.
Exactly. Not replace them entirely.
Procurement professionals still have a vital role to play.
Absolutely. Managing those supplier relationships, negotiating contracts, making sure the sourcing process aligns with the overall goals of the organization.
It's a team effort.
It is a partnership between humans and technology
And the goal is
to create a more efficient, transparent, and collaborative sourcing process.
that benefits everyone.
Everyone involved, yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to go back to that question you left us with
Right.
about, where else this level of transparency and efficiency could be a game changer.
It's a question worth thinking about.
It is.
I encourage everyone to really consider it.
Yeah.
Look beyond those obvious applications.
Right.
Think about industries that might not traditionally be associated with RFQs.
And for our listeners who are ready to dive even deeper
Yes.
into the world of efficient RFQs,
For sure.
definitely check out PROKURIA.
Great platform
They have a ton of great tools and resources
to help businesses of all sizes.
streamline their sourcing processes and optimize their supply chains.
It's all about making procurement smarter.
Exactly. But no matter what platform you choose, remember the key takeaways from our conversation.
Absolutely.
Embrace the evolution of RFQs.
Number one.
Leverage the power of automation.
Uh-huh.
And never lose sight of that human expertise.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right. Thanks for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.